Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and this is uh, World War III report with me and William. And William, welcome. We have got breaking news. And William, he says it's old news, but why didn't the news tell us about this? And why did they cover it up for so long? So it's about Blinken, it's about Biden, it's about Iran. Pay close attention, folks, because just going to let William tell you about it, and then me and him might discuss a little bit more. So go ahead, William.
So there's a guy at the State Department. He's like third or fourth in line, right, from Blinken. And the FBI revoked his security clearance. Now, he has security clearances to the highest levels in the government. And it turns out he was not caring for or transferring documents that he shouldn't have been doing. And also, he had been placing people in positions within the State Department that turned out to be Iranian spies. And so they're considering him an Iranian spy as well. And he was one of the first people that went with Kerry and Blinken to Iran back in 2015 to set up the JCPOA. And he was the one that was pushing it here again up until July. So we haven't heard much about the JCPOA since July. And that's when they took his clearance. And then it was hush-hush until a congressman found out through I believe it was a Freedom of Information issue that he had. And as soon as the State Department was queried, then they took him off like home duty and discharged him from the State Department. So this guy's name is Robert Malley, and this is kind of important because Robert Malley and Blinken are the same age, and they both graduated from a high school in France. Their parents were like diplomats or, had business in other countries, so they were, a lot of the education they had got were in different places. And this Malley guy, he had PhDs from Oxford, Yale. I think he's also got something from Harvard as well. So he and Blinken grew up knowing each other in this high school. So he has been, part of the national security and State Department actors. He would have been there under, I believe, Clinton. He's there under Kerry.
Mm-hmm.
And so remember when it was said that Kerry gave away information on Israel to Iran? Well, this guy may have been involved in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been information shared that shouldn't have been. And there's another gal that lost her security clearance, and she was the one that they had her at the embassy in Libya when it was about to be overrun in Tripoli, and some CIA contractors managed to get that ambassador and 100 of the employees out of Tripoli, and it was nearly a Benghazi situation. So she lost hers as well, and they called her some name, but anyway, it was basically, what is it that you want from us so we can give you do with lost documents or misplaced documents, anything when there's a document that doesn't have that has a security rating on it. The Biden administration now is very, very, I don't know what you'd call it, afraid, I guess, or tepid about talking about the situations that happen. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they consider this guy, Robert Malley, a spy yet, but at least he's been lost his position and had his pay removed from the State Department.
Good.
And it's a pretty big deal because he had access to the White House. He had access to the mullahs in Iran. He is one of the people that worked with the intermediaries that were the Russian intermediaries that were involved with Iran trying to get the JCPOA thing solved. And so it's a big, dangerous situation all the way around.
Yeah. Well, they're basically saying the Biden administration is now kind of sidelined and protecting Robert Malley. And according to the guy that exposed it, and it was I heard when I was reading over a lot of the articles today, William, that it was a leak from the State Department, and that it's compromised Americans' national security, and it's about Iranian influence operations in the United States. Malley is under FBI investigations and have been suspended from a State Department role. Now, Team Biden has shielded him from any being charged or any scrutiny or even being mentioned, not only in the media, but the Congress is told to be hushed about this. And that's increasingly...
His suspension happened all the way back in July. So from July until now, this has been closely held information. It's been out in the blogosphere to a degree, but if it hadn't shown up on, I think it's called Forward Observer, I wouldn't have picked up on it. You had me look at something. I can't remember what it was, but I stumbled into this because of that. And dang, this is a big story. Yeah, we need to know what he gave away.
There was a guy from on a press briefing earlier this week. That's why I think it's now they're trying to do damage control. That a guy named Matthew Miller went on the offense, implying that the reporting was irrelevant because the events described took place nearly a decade ago. And he says pretty much he declined giving any type of update. Yet earlier this month, Biden mentioned freeing up $6 billion in frozen Iranian funds and with the prisoner swap. But now, if this is a decade ago, this is something that was worked out and started under the Obama administration, according to the State Department leak. And so now they have to give full accounting of Malley's what he did, and not only that, but letting Iranian soldiers / maybe terrorists, it says, come through the border. And you mentioned to me earlier that basically Blinken was controlling what Mayorkas was doing on the border.
So Mayorkas and Blinken and the name just leaves me. The guy that's over Department of Justice. They're going to Mexico to talk to the president of Mexico just today.
Yeah.
Trying to solve the
Adams, Mayor Adams,
how
yes.
these refugees, or whatever they want to call them right now, so they can process them before they get to the border. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like to stop them from getting to the border. They just want to be able to move them through the border faster.
Yeah.
And so it requires Mayorkas, the State Department, and
Lincoln.
the Department of Justice, DOJ, together to reassure the president of Mexico that what they're going to request of him is okay under U.S. law.
Yeah. But William, if Iranians are in this country and they said they're going to label this Mali as a spy, isn't that like a double agent?
So
that's what I'm thinking.
We have Iranians, okay, in the United States that got marooned here when the Shah was overthrown by the mullahs, right? And by and large, they've become, they went to school here, they've lived here, they can never go back to Iran because they were high in society, right, under the Shah. And so they got wind of this going on, and I think that's how the information got out was from a sympathetic Iranian here that was marooned here in the 70s. Now, we're finding out this information that's going on with Iranians being hired, basically U.S. citizens that are Iranians that have come into the country since the Shah, being hired into positions in the State Department, and they're transferring information back to Iran.
And the thing is this is, I'm going to say, one of the worst, impeachable, not only for Blinken, but for Biden, because Biden is known about this for a decade.
Well,
and it goes back to even Obama, which we could charge Obama with, because this is something they all set up.
So Blinken has shielded Robert O'Malley.
And Blinken has worked for Biden for about 2 decades. I've traced it back.
Keep in mind that O'Malley, he was first involved in North Africa and Algeria. He did his thesis on a certain paper, and then from that he started being recognized. Whereas Blinken, he's tied more to Palestine. Okay.
Yeah.
But the two of them have interacted with Palestinians and Israelis and Iranians all through the years.
Yeah.
And so it's dangerous, the things this guy knows.
Well, yeah, the other thing, William, what gets me.
Fear.
Okay.
Here's my fear is Iran is right on the border of Afghanistan. Was he giving information to Iran that was being shared with Afghanistan? Because, we are, according to the Iranians, the great Satan. And Iran was providing all the big ordnance that was being used for bombs on the road, right? IEDs. Those big shells and stuff that were being used came from Iran. What did this guy know about? And was he helpful to the United States? Was he hurt the United States? What?
Well,
and he was involved in the State Department when the big debacle happened during the withdrawal. What was he? I want to know what this guy was involved in during the withdrawal in Afghanistan. I think he was involved
Well,
because it's right on the border with Iran.
well, Kerry has been going over to Iran and meeting with quite a few of the Iranians
So we've got pictures
for
of
2-3 decades.
Kerry, Robert Malley, and Blinken sitting across the table from Iranian delegations.
Yes.
He's been there as long as Kerry's ever been involved with the State Department.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Blinken goes back 2 decades with Joe Biden. So in between Joe Biden, before he was vice, he was a senator. So this goes all the way back to him being a senator and then into him being a vice, and then him and Obama working out these pallets of money to Iran. And not only that, but for like 2 decades, we have seen nothing but them working with Iran. They were working with Afghanistan. We were letting Pakistan train ISIS fighters. Then we find out they protect ISIS. The Taliban, Al Qaeda. Um, and the Palestinians, and it's not the Palestinian people that they're worried about. It's Hamas and Hezbollah, and then we had Nancy Pelosi hugging MS-13.
Yeah. So we got Hamas and Hezbollah in Mexico right now.
Yeah.
All right, and we have Iranians showing up in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. And in the United States now with this report.
Yeah, well, they've caught how many terrorists trying to enter. So how is this even happening that these people are being released into the United States
without our State Department knowing about it? And the other thing, William, we talked about this before the show, is I was finding out that we have, it started off as the cartel infiltrating Northern California with the marijuana growers. And then when they were caught so many times, they decided not to grow marijuana and look just like hunters. Well, now the officers for Game and Fish of California has now found 15 camps in Northern California around Shasta, and that has Iranian, ISIS, the cartel, and now the newer ones are happening north of Denver in Colorado. There's 10 camps with the same Iranian, ISIS, and the cartel. So now we have training camps in the United States with Iran, and if the fish and game guys in California know about it, then it would be Newsom to turn it over to the Department of Defense, but also Department of Justice or the FBI. The FBI has known about this, and so has California, but they haven't done nothing because this goes back 10 years. So we're right smack into Obama again.
So these guys are covert, right? They don't have like the training camp we think of, like ISIS used over in Afghanistan. So these guys, maybe 4 or 5 of them get together. They all have hunting licenses. They go out with weapons, and while
they've got AKs
they're not only just hunting, but they're being taught the tactics of warfare.
Get this though, William, they actually got into it with DEA officers and SWAT about 5, they say about 5, well, it was about 5-6 years ago now, and they had AKs. They've got ARs. And why didn't we hear about it? Because I went back and looked for news articles for that. And they said, the only thing that was said was the FBI got into a battle with armed men near Shasta that had ARs. And it had nothing, they didn't mention that these were, even Iran. Now, I could see ISIS and the cartel, but Iranian soldiers in Northern California and even in Denver. And now it kind of makes sense that we see a lot of these migrants that are men that in between 25 and 30 that are wanting to go to Denver. And when traced, they're going north of Denver to smaller towns. So that it just backs everything up. And man, it just
So th- these uh, these guys, by and large, I don't know how they're getting the weapons and getting the licenses if they're not U.S. citizens.
yeah,
So
fake
are
IDs.
these guys actually U.S. citizens at this point? Are we giving them citizenship priority?
Well, a decade ago, they could have gotten a farming visa or green card to come in and work under being from Mexico, and they could have had a fake ID. These are smart guys;
Yeah.
they're not stupid. And not only that, and I'm going to kind of move on. That Iran is saying they want to send troops to Ukraine. That would be the next one.
To Russia, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
To the
Yeah, I'm
Russian.
sorry. Russia. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Um, uh,
So Iran's been supplying Russia with drones, and you know when you ship weapons, not all of them are fully manufactured or in one piece. They have to be assembled and put on launchers and help with guidance systems and stuff like that because those systems were all written in Farsi. They're not written in Russian, right?
mm-hmm.
So there has to be Iranians in Russia assembling the weapon being shipped from Iran. So those guys are already there. I don't know if they're talking about these folks or if Iranian Farsi troops are actually being sent to aid in combat or maybe just to aid in supply. We don't know what
Mm-hmm.
part of the military they're involved in.
Yeah.
Because there's layers of it. They may not be even involved in combat.
Yeah. And then we got, I don't want to forget about Haiti because Haiti is erupting. And, I've been waiting for them to say something on the news about it, and they're just not talking about it. And we will be sending 6,000 troops to Haiti. And get this, it's not that we're sending, it won't be listed as American troops. We have troops that go in the guise of the UN to different.
So these are Ugandan troops. I believe that's who it was, Uganda. Anyway, it's they're West Africans.
Well,
okay.
Kenya is the one that's doing the big fighting there. The multi-armed force led by Kenya is in Haiti, trying to help out and gain control of. It's like many gangs that, with lack of policing, have risen and taken over many cities now.
So they're sending them in as UN peacekeepers. They have a 1-year mandate. All right. They are black people doing operations in Haiti with other black people. So there's not the white on black type thing going on. But anyway, after 90 days, the UN will reassess. There's going to be a full review of how effective these 300 military trained troops are in Haiti. So it's been kept under the radar. You're right.
Mm-hmm. And then Now, this one here I did yesterday. Putin orders the first ever nationwide nuclear drill, prepares bomb test uh, at the Arctic Circle. So he's going to do one of his nuclear drill tests at the Arctic Circle, um, and not there in Russia. And, most of the time you would think they would do it in their own country, but this is a little different. And that's what got not only Ukraine concerned, but the UN concerned that he is ready for a nuclear war.
So, in the military, we call this posturing. All right, so they're doing a couple things at once. They're teaching their civilians how to react if they get information on a threat, okay, so they can share it with the public. That's one thing that's going on. Another thing that's going on is they're letting Europe know that they're prepared, so don't mess with us. That's the posturing part. And they may do a test of their weapon, okay? Now, we've had a treaty for a long time to not do any open air nuclear tests, right? But that went away. That all went away under Biden, I believe. And so, or maybe even under Trump. So they may opt to do a above ground test in one of the Arctic islands that are within their 12-mile zone.
Yeah.
And, the rest of the world just basically has to watch. There's nothing that can be done.
And they did
like
a couple dozen.
History up there.
Okay, so now Turkey. Now, man, we've got Haiti going on. We got so many different battles going on, and the newest one is Turkey announced a bombing campaign Sunday consisting of a couple dozen strategic positions within the borders of Iraq, a response to a suicide attack against the Turkish general in Ankara, they said, over the weekend. So this guy was assassinated, and then Turkey just basically announced they're bombarding Iraq for this. So
there's two groups of Kurds. There's the Kurds that help the Christians in the mountains of Iraq, and then there's a group of Kurds that are down along the Euphrates River and out towards the Aegean Sea. So these were probably attacks on the ones down towards the Aegean Sea. They're known to be brutal. They're not friendly with basically anybody. Okay. So I guess it is what it is. We also, the United Nations now has sent United Nations advisors and with some, military capacity over to the Nagorno-Karabakh area, where the people that are fleeing there and going back. What's the name of that country? I forget the name. It's where Lisa Varsomian was from. Anyway, there was a genocide years and years ago, and they're afraid of another genocide happening. So that's on
Haiti, maybe?
the borders. It's on the borders of Turkey to the east. So, and you have to also keep in mind, the United States has a military base in Ankara. We have heavy bombers in Ankara. So if a general's assassinated there, that causes all kinds of red flags to go up with NATO. I'm sorry, the country that's beside is Armenia. So they have 20,000 Armenians trying to get back to regular Armenia that had been surrounded. And it's basically Armenian Christians against Muslims, just like in Serbia, they're having Christian Serbs against what's the other group that's on the edge of going to war right now?
The Shiites or Shia?
No, in Europe.
Oh, in Europe.
No, this is in Europe. We stopped a war there before. Remember, we went in at Sarajevo and stopped the war because they were.
Wasn't that Afghanistan then?
No.
Or the Afghanistan war?
I'll think of it in a while. But anyway, we've got all these different places brewing up in civil wars because of weakness that's being portrayed by the United States. And we've got State Department that won't stand up to these guys.
Yeah. Well, they're crooked. That's all I could say.
How do you do negotiations when you already act defeated before you meet with these folks?
Yeah. And moving onward, boy, now this one I laughed and said, good, she deserved it. But poor Nancy Pelosi was crying. Jeffries, let's make sure I get his name right. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' staff accomplished the move, they said. They started moving things over when Nancy Pelosi got very upset. She thought she would have this elite office, plush, forever. But now, since she's a simple little Congress lady, it's time for Hakeem Jeffries to move into his office, being the Speaker for the Democrat Party. Well, she didn't take it well, folks. And now I got rumors, but I kind of don't want to say much because, me and William talked it over, and I could tell you a lot more. She was angry. She was really, really angry. And she ended up, what I heard was she was there and then flew home to San Francisco. So Nancy Pelosi lost her office. Now she gets to go in a little office like the rest of the congressmen. So maybe Hakeem Jeffries will give it back, huh?
The new interim Speaker of the House for the Republicans, I believe, was the one that gave the order, and Hakeem Jeffries agreed.
Well, yeah, because that's legally that's his office.
Right.
She has to give it up, but I guess she threw a pretty big fit over this. Now, hopefully, they don't bend a knee to her and let her move back. I agree with Jeffries and others that Jeffries needs to move into his office. He worked hard to get this position, and it's time for him to have the office. But what has been reported to me, he's going to have to fix some holes. And so
she's been putting up portraits. Is that what's going on?
Yeah. Well, that's what I heard. Is she likes to throw things, and she's a very angry woman. Feinstein was the same way. She was very angry, and when people didn't agree, she would throw things or get verbal or go to other offices and threaten people, even threatening people in the halls. There's pictures of this. And so poor Nancy, she cried and other things. And they let her go home to San Francisco, where she needs to fix her own district, is what I think. San Francisco's a mess. William, this is so crazy. How many times would you let your dog bite a police officer before you're going to think something's up? Because Biden's dog, they say the 11th. Now, I've heard there's been way more. I'm hearing there's more in the 20s. That this 20 times this dog has bit Secret Service. He bit quite a bit. He chompa on their on Secret Service, and um, um, in their home, and not only that, but at the White House and on events that they have went to. And Biden says, "Well, I don't know. I'm just he's not going to deal with it." Um, shouldn't we have demanded that the dog be taken out after a couple chomps?
So I owned a dog that bit my daughter, and the next day I took it to the vet and had him euthanized. That can't be tolerated because if they'll bite one person, they'll bite another person. And these dogs, they're trained to be guard dogs. These are killers, basically.
Oh man, I seen a video, and I might, if I can grab the video, I'd like to do it on Monday, of this officer that had this dog that he let it loose in a house, and it found it was a lady, and the dog attacked. I mean, I was thinking subdue her and maybe a bite or two, but the dog was biting, and he couldn't even get William. He couldn't even pull the dog off of her. Now, to me, that says that's a little extreme, and the dog needs not to be go and find the criminal because he was chewing her up.
So they're trained to latch onto the criminal and not to let go until help catches up with the other police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there was just one police officer that got there, maybe that animal won't release until it believes that there's enough people there that he as a dog doesn't have to subdue the victim.
Mm-hmm.
Or not the criminal, I'm sorry, not the victim. But by fleeing the police, hiding from the police, whatever they do, and the police have to send in a dog, right, to find somebody, or have to send in a dog because they've got somebody fleeing from the police, and dogs, can outrun a human being. They're incredibly fast. They're a great tool, and they save other police officers' lives because they can get into places where there's ambushes and whatnot being set up.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of police dogs lose their lives. And these aren't just considered canines. These are actually considered officers.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. My sister, I think, had one. And I think it didn't work out. But I don't want to say much on it because I'm not sure what happened with the dog. But now, this one I'm talking about, the officer couldn't pull the dog off of this lady, and it was lunging and biting and breaking free and biting and biting and biting. And I counted at least 20 times this dog bit her, and she was screaming. And the officer.
Was she moving?
Huh?
Was she moving? Was she moving?
She was only moving because the dog was biting her, and he was yelling for her to get up, get up, get up. So she was trying to get up and comply, and the dog was jumping her and pushing her down and biting her. There's a lawsuit on this.
They're trained to pull them down.
And then when he hooked the leash, he could still, it was minutes that he was able to get this dog off of her. And then he put it in the car. And then what he told his sergeant was she wouldn't comply, and the dog, he had to use the dog to get her out. Nothing the dog was attacking. And I might go ahead and do the story on it Monday because this is a big thing in this town because pretty much they're probably going to put the dog down. But now we're looking at Biden with a German Shepherd, and this was a German Shepherd that did this other one.
A lot of officers, they actually import these dogs. They're called shoots hounds. German Shepherds, and they're
Mhm.
like the smartest, most capable of the breed, and they actually come out of West Germany, and they're very competent animals.
Mhm.
But if you ever
But
watch
if
a
you
dog
train a
that
dog
gets
to,
into a fight, sometimes they zone out.
but
So
William, if you train these dogs to go after a criminal, or you train them to attack, it's like you said, sometimes they go overboard. And this is just cheating a really good dog out of proper training, is how I look at it.
I
Yeah.
think so, probably. But
I
these
mean,
ones
look at
that
your dog. Your dog's trained. And I mean, you're not teaching her to chew up uh, anybody
well,
that's
my
coming around you.
service dogs are trained to be absolutely compliant and
Hmm.
be safe with everybody, including
Yeah.
little children, old people.
Hmm.
I've had old people and people that they're a little off come over and love and maul her. Um, her job is to just hold still and accept it.
Yeah.
And I had some other people come in one time and were patting on my dog to the point where it was almost hitting her, my Miss Sally, and she stood there. She took it. We've had
Yeah.
children come over and pull their ears and pull their tails, and
Hmm. Well, see, that's how I
you
teach
never
my
know
dogs
what's
from
going to happen.
puppy. I always teach mine, from puppy that you pull their ears, you pull their nose, pull their whiskers, pull their tail, pull their legs, and if they get so they take that as it's a normal thing. So when a child does it, they're not going to lunge out and bite. And then see
Yeah,
that what I'm trying to get at is then you have the police dogs that are trained to like for drugs, sniff out drugs, and they're not there to attack anybody. They're just to sniff out all types of drugs, and they're trained very well on it. Then you have these dogs that have to go in and find a suspect, and like you said, to hold them into place. They get them, they bite them, they hold them. This dog was lunging and biting and biting and biting and biting, and this woman
he may have been
screaming, "Help me, help me."
he may have been a young trained dog too. Dogs don't live forever, and you train them you start training them when they're young. It's like Miss Miki. She's trained that she shows me what's going on, and then I'm the bad dog. She's the good dog. I'm good cop, bad cop. And so she never feels threatened because I'm around.
Yeah. Okay, I want to kind of move on because let me see what town this is. Wyoming. This is out of Wyoming, the Teton County, town of Jackson. Um, they purchased because all these towns are being forced to do electric buses, and um, they got them, and they said 2021, and they got a fleet of them, about 10 of them, and every single one of them have broke down, caught on fire, or they're not stopping for pedestrians. And then we find out that now this happened out in LA. I thought it was in DC, that I mentioned yesterday that one electric car ran someone over. Now I mentioned the cone thing on Monday. If you put a cone on the hood, it'll stop. But if someone or a dog or a cat, a person gets in front of these cars, it just kathud kathud, it runs them over. And that's what's happening with these buses. And they said that just within 2 years, the whole fleet of buses are broke. And pretty
So
much they've caught on
if you've
fire.
ever been to Jackson County, Wyoming, or Jackson, Wyoming, they're they're just at the base of the Tetons. Okay, um, so it's one of the most. It's a ski resort town as well, and the elk come down during the winter and winter there. So they feed the elk out in the pastures, and this is where very, very rich people live. Okay, it's more exclusive than Aspen. It's more
And they were forced, they said, to buy these buses. And they said uh, most people, when they did a poll out there about anybody that bought the EV cars and what was the longevity, and most of them are going within 5 years.
Well, they get 60 inches of snow there.
Yeah, they're not going to run. The battery does not work in the cold. If you anybody, I mean, even chime in on this on comments, folks, because if you live up north and a battery freezes, you have to warm it up. You got to either keep it charged, you got to keep a warmer on it, and they're forcing people to get these cars.
That's heated.
Well, I'm going to say, let's go with the buses because they're forcing all the taxis, all the buses, all of the main transportations need to be switched over by, I think it's 2027.
2030.
Is it 2030? I thought it was 20. I'm probably wrong on that, but I'm guessing. Um, and so now they said a lot of people up even in New York and above are now having issues with they're buying these cars when they were 80, 90, 100,000 or more, and now 2 years later they're looking that they want to go back to gas, and that's what's happening in this town in Wyoming. They're saying they're going back to diesel buses.
If you've ever worked with electric motors, um, these have to be continuous 200 horsepower motors to run these buses. They're not going to last long.
No.
If you've been around farms and stuff like that where they have grain elevators and stuff, they're constantly replacing motors.
Mm-hmm.
They just burn up because they don't have like an oiling system that a internal combustion engine has. They're greased once on their bearings, and when those bearings are gone, they seize.
And it's not that I'm against this. I've said it over and over again to the viewers. It's just I think they did a rush to judgment, a rush to built them way too fast. And if they would have done it in a longer type of time frame and took their time on this and tested it, because I'm hearing so many times they test it in their own the testing facilities, but they never took them out to the streets and tried them out for a couple months to a year to find and work out the kinks. Now the kinks are showing up.
So they use LiPo-Fe batteries, right? These are lithium and iron batteries. They're great. You can charge them up, and they can sit out in a cabin and do nothing for half a year in Alaska, and you can show up back in the spring, and they'll thaw out and still have a charge.
Mm-hmm.
They're great, but you can't discharge them when it drops below freezing.
Yeah.
They're absolutely gone. Nada. And that's what these people are finding out. If they can't keep these buses heated, and they're not using the little batteries like they're used in the Toyota cars, right?
Yeah.
Where they look like the old A batteries, but they're like twice the size and 7 volts. Anyway, these are actually pancakes of batteries, more like you find in your laptop. And then they're compressed together, and they hold terrific amounts of energy. A lot of, handicapped people now use them in their scooters because they last so long. They're great batteries, but they're no good in the snow. And if you charge them quickly and you don't keep them under pressure, they will catch fire.
Yeah.
And they have to be kept cool.
And
so you have to
now
have
what I hear is, William, I'm not sure what the regular cars, I'm not real good on automotive stuff. I'm not sure what regular cars are made out of or previous, but they're saying that when these EV cars hit something, they just crumble. They're just not
Well,
built well.
So they started out having way too many parts that had to be welded together. And so GM or somebody went in and helped, like Elon Musk in his manufacturing, reduce the total number of body parts so that he could sell his cars at a lower price. Well, what they finally found out was that the sealant, the glues that they used, were actually stronger than if they spot welded them. And so it turned out it's easier to squirt glue on these things and then put them together. Well, when you get hit, the panels separate. And if you hit a Ford pickup truck in the front end, both those front side panels are hooked to foam rubber, so that they'll explode away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, and we're talking about oil and stuff, and we know Syria has got a pretty good size oil refinery there already, but Biden administration, you know, is basically gutted our energy industry, and now we got 3 countries that are very serious about this new oil refinery, and that's Iran and Syria and Venezuela. All 3 nations have come together and had a serious meeting on this to build a new oil refinery in Homs, Syria.
So Exxon, Dutch Royal, Shell, all these companies that have been doing exploration in the United States have had to look for ways to keep their employees busy. So they've lobbied these countries as well.
Yeah.
There'll be U.S. workers that do a lot of the exploration and pipes and all this stuff, oil rigs for these folks.
Yeah. And Venezuela has been persistent for both these other nations. And they said they're really warming up to it.
Oil before they became communist.
Well, you know, the thing about this, William, is they said that Venezuela is saying how Iran has been warming up to them. And they, as a result of socialist dictator Hugo Chavez. And so now Hugo is getting really super close with the Iranian president, Mohammed, Ahmadinejad. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
It's that weird name that I'm bad at names. And both countries are, they say, getting together and meeting on a regular basis. And that Syria's, what is it? Is it Oregon? Is it Oregon in Syria? Did I got that right? Because I don't have his name.
Oregon is from Turkey.
Okay, then it's, what's the guy in, because it doesn't mention his name, it just says Syria. That Syria is gloating how these 2 countries, especially Iran, is going to come up and help them, because this would pull Damascus out of a financial devastation that they've been through during the war. And I didn't look where Homs was, because it's Homs, Syria, but they're saying that this would bring Iran into Syria to become a serious player, and not only in the industry of oil, but also helping. Man, I wish I could remember the Syrian guy's name. Normally, I just know it right offhand.
I can't remember it either.
So they're saying that the United Nations and other venues have confronted this atrocious human rights record that they're that's going on. And they said that if this happens, that UN would consider calling for the removal of all sanctions not only on Syria, but Venezuela and Iran. And that's something, William?
Yeah, this is Assad is who you're talking about.
Yes, there you go.
Assad.
Yep, Assad. That's his name.
Yeah, so you got to remember that we had that whole ISIS group where they were going to have their own ISIS nation.
Mm-hmm.
Those people came in and started a civil war in Syria, right? And Assad has been trying to keep his country together north of Damascus, and that's where the Alawite Christians live, and the Muslims in ISIS don't want them there.
Mm-mm. So,
and that's what the war's been about. United States and Russia came in. We pushed back on ISIS, and Russia stabilized Assad. So we were actually kind of helping each other.
now I always thought, because now years ago, I'm talking 10 years ago, it was Russia wanting to buy that oil refinery, the big one they had there. And I thought Assad was going to go ahead and let Russia move in. Now that Russia's under the war and it hasn't happened, um, because they, I
So
mean,
Russia has Assad let Russia have one of their northern ports for his military. All right, so they've made arrangements together, but right now Putin's completely focused on Ukraine and Central Africa. He's busy enough with that. So Iran is trying to come in and take up the space that was left by Al Qaeda and those groups, right? When we pushed them back under Trump. But now we're just there protecting a few oil refineries that are owned by American groups. And there's not many Russian aircraft or troops like that in Syria. So, Assad is in grave danger. And Iran may actually be stabilizing Western Syria on the Saudi Arabian border and on the border of Jordan.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly, but we do know that Hamas down by Israel are radicals, and they want Israel off out of Arabia, basically.
Yeah.
And
Oops.
This is Sunnis and Shiites getting together to push Israel out and the United States away. Okay, so we're the great Satan, and they'll work together, the Shiites and the Sunnis, as long as it's against Israel and the United States. But as soon as the imperial leaders, I guess you would call them, get out of the area, then they turn around and start killing each other. So they're frenemies.
Yeah. And before I get too far and keep getting noises from this, we had China nuclear submarine suffers catastrophic failure. Now, this is a leak that has come from MI6 out of UK. It was UK that did something, they said, which caused this submarine to go under, a nuclear sub. And it killed 55 people, 21 were officers. And according to the MI and the UK, as well as the United States, knowing about this, they all kept this quiet. Now, I've heard, where we've had our own submarine that has had issues, and we've come right out and said, William, I get the feeling with this that UK may have done something. But you would think China would come out and say, hey, look what y'all just did, or fire upon them. So this was basically something that came out of the UK, and they have kept it quiet. This happened, I believe, the August 27th is when it sunk. So maybe this is why China's getting so upset, William, is because they, this is one of their nuclear subs. But
well, they probably hit each other is what happened. Remember that there were ships bumping each other.
Yeah.
So they may have, and it may have been an accidental ramming because they don't actually hear each other all the time.
Yeah.
They can black hole.
Well, I watched a video where 5 subs, and they said it was 2 different countries that were, they didn't know where each other were, so they surfaced, and and they looked at each other basically, but they were so close. Now, and me, it's like, how did they not see that? But I didn't look too far into it because I figured it as propaganda. But this is
most submarines don't use their sonar. They just listen to other things around them to know where they are. Because if they go active with the sonar, everybody on Earth now knows where they are.
Yeah.
And a sub value is not being seen or heard from. And
everything's about nuclear lately.
Place there is on Earth as far as machines. It is the most dangerous machine to be on because it only takes one small slip up and you go to the bottom.
Yeah. And the submarines are a very important part of not just China, but us and the UK, where if, let's say, Russia launches the nuclears, one of the first things that happen is our communication bases, I believe PayPause, I could be wrong, uh, notifies these submarines and they instantly fire. We fire, our own, but they let them subs know, and them subs let loose on their nuclears. And I don't think too many people know that it's we send ours, but so does the submarines.
So the president can authorize them and require them to fire on a presidential order. But here's the spooky part. They have standing orders that if the United States is hit by a nuclear weapon, they are to retaliate on their own.
Yes. So, that was the other thing with the nukes.
So the skipper of one of our nuclear submarines, our boomers, can go to war.
Yeah.
He has the right
now,
to go to war.
Get this, William. Now, I've heard that, but do you know we're the only country that has that order? That's, I thought maybe everybody had it, but no. And I think that's part of that one that Trump put in, that if the military feels we're under threat, that they can act on their own. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's called.
They trust our military because we're so well trained, right?
Yeah.
Other countries don't necessarily have groups that are that well trained.
Yeah.
Because if you're willing to launch, all right, you're willing to allow your own family to be killed. That's basically what's going on. So you don't want to give that kind of power to just anybody.
Yeah. And lastly, unless you have something to add after this, North Korea leader, and I think this is his sister. When I seen this, I was like, no, this is her doing this. They are urging greater nuclear weapons production. They said under the new, they say it's no longer a Cold War, but maybe a warm war. And they want to mass produce nuclear weapons, large and small, and so they can send it to Iran, Russia, and some of the other countries in need of nuclear weapons. So they're willing to sell them to anybody.
So there's nuclear weapons that can be made out of uranium, and there's nuclear weapons that can be made out of plutonium. And you use what's called a breeder reactor to create plutonium with during the fusion process of uranium. Well, these breeder reactors can create a lot of it, and they can export stuff.
Yeah. And so, I think we've talked about Kim Jong-un and then his sister, and I believe, it's kind of like he's president and she's vice. But I think sometimes she like hog ties and duct tapes him and takes over, because she's fierce. They're even saying that world leaders tremble when they see her. I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know about that,
Well, Kim Jong-un was kind of a playboy over in Switzerland growing
Black
up.
Widow.
This gal was serious, and I believe she stayed at home. And she really studied under her father. So she is somebody to be concerned about.
But in those cultures, though, William, it's men. The women are not. No, and it was amazing that his father taught her that. It's very amazing because that culture is the men are to be the warrior. If you look into North Korea or Asia,
that are serious. If you can't cultivate your sons to be serious, and basically they're kings, right? Under their communist king.
Yeah.
You have no choice but to have a queen, and that's basically what she was trained to be.
She's a black widow.
Well, she's dangerous.
She's like a praying mantis. She'd eat the heads off of any leader that she could. I don't know. Maybe I'm just giving her too much credit, but she's very fierce. I've done a lot of reading on her, and I just like, man, I would hate to be in the room with her, because if she's in the same room as me, I've done something she's gonna get me for, and
yeah.
So
she's a serious contender for power.
Oh
anyway, yeah. They have a border with Russia, so if they decide to ship nuclear arms, there's no way we can interdict them in the West. We can't. They're not going out to the ocean.
No,
they're going by rail.
The same way with China, but China doesn't need them. But then Russia can basically any borders that they have, and I really do believe that Kim Jong Un can get these to Iran, Libya, Hezbollah, Hamas. I believe that they really can be able to get this through routes that they could supply many of our enemies.
Anywhere in Asia. They can ship from West Asia to East Asia, anywhere. Because there's, the old rail line they call the Oriental Express that goes all the way from Moscow all the way to north of Korea, where they have 2 Navy bases. So, and they share a border with China, with North Korea, with Iran. And so if they decide to ship things, there's no way to stop them.
No. And right now with this BRIC and North Korea being a big player, I think it was him and her, and now we're looking at Putin with a nuclear drill that we found out. We've got Taiwan saying, China's real close to being ready. We have North Korea wanting to supply all of our national enemies with nukes, and everybody is all nukes. But I'm with you where I think everyone is afraid to push that button because of what would happen. The consequences.
They should be afraid.
The consequences are death. So.
Well, it's mutual assured destruction.
Yeah. So anyway, you have anything to add, William, before we closed for the night.
Yeah, so Taiwan is getting prepared for their National Day on the 10th. They call it 10/10, and their military is doing parades and whatnot. And I noticed that
they have a typhoon coming too.
right there in the south of Taiwan is being struck by a typhoon right now, and all the fishermen are having to come into port and lash their boats down altogether. Anyway, what I was going to say is their helmets. They have the old Western helmets like the United States that were just made out of steel. They don't have the new Kevlar. I noticed.
Huh.
At least doing their parade. So that was kind of concerning to me. And also, the United States has, between Taiwan and the very southern tip of Japan, just out away from South Korea, has set up a military base on an island.
Yeah.
So like China has their islands in the South China Sea, we just planted one close to Taiwan.
Yeah, and I think but isn't that what China did? They built an island and then they put their military base on it. And so to me, with China doing it, and then we did it, but in China's eyes, that is more firepower for Taiwan when a war does start. It's
So
almost inevitable.
That gives all of our airplanes puts all of our aircraft within striking distance of China.
Yep.
And North Korea, and Taiwan, and Japan. So, but Taiwan, South Korea, and Taiwan are our friends. And so before, our planes would have to fly out of Guam in the Marianas. Now, Japan's given them one of their most southern small islands to put a base on. And it was secret for quite a while. But that's good because now Taiwan has competent they will have competent airstrike capacity from the United States as well as their own pilots. So if something goes wrong with either one, they can come to, it's a mutual aid situation. And it makes sense. And also China they had the 8-dash line, I think is what they called it. Now they have the 10-dash line, and they've increased the size of what they believe is theirs. So they want to control everything that comes through the Malacca Straits now. All right, I guess that's what we have, Ellie.
Okay, great show. And subscribe and share. And if you're just joining us for the first time tonight, World War III, we give you a lot of info of what's going on with war. And sometimes we get in depth on certain items and military equipment, or sometimes just one country. But we try to go all the way around the world and let you know what's going on with wars and skirmishes or even military bases. So continue to join us.
It's important to look around the world and find the most salient, dangerous things that we see going on and then talk on those.
It's because the news isn't talking about it. Even independent news, nobody's talking about the wars and what's going on around the world. And people need to know, because it's like what if Libya was to threaten Iran, gives them nuclear, they're building up and they're ready to go to war and shoot, nukes. The news needs to start informing us of what's really going on around the world. They really do.
We're one of the few outlets that looks globally at everything. We're looking at Iran, we're looking at Venezuela, wherever there's strife going on, and we look to see who the power players are, and what's likely to next to happen. And we've even suggested things to happen so that wars can end. Give listeners ideas, and some of the people that listen to us are in very high places.
Yeah. And not only that, but we're really letting everyone know of what they have. We go over different. We do so much on our show. In-depth report on what they have military wise, and even in depth in what is really going on with the Ukrainian war and how long these things go on, and detail of why China is wanting Taiwan so bad. So
next week we'll probably talk about Zelensky and his likelihood to stay in power.
He's demanding it. I could almost see him stomping his foot at the UN, saying, "Give me money, give me money." So anyway, and there's so much more that we're going to gather up for next week. So with that, everyone, subscribe and hit that like button. We got quite a few likes and thumbs up tonight. Give us a like and subscribe, and we thank you for your support and share. And if you don't get notified that our show on Wednesdays is going on and becomes live, then hit that bell. All right. Everyone have a wonderful Wednesday, and God bless. And there's always church services on Wednesday, and there's some on Sunday. William's favorite motto: "Fill the churches."
The churches are the cheapest, the most effective way for the average person to put pressure on their elected officials, believe it or not, because they're an entire congregation. When pastors speak, politicians have to listen. And if you are concerned about something, using the church, whatever it is that you have, organization, you can have a more effective voice. Yeah. And it doesn't cost you anything but a visit.
Yeah. So, okay, William, great show. And we will, if you're like our World War III report, we'll see you next week. If not, come on back tomorrow, and it'll be me and Lee tomorrow with crime. Boy, there's so much going on with Tupac and other Hollywood and music industry that we're going to get into. So come back and join me and Lee tomorrow night. And of course, our weather and lifestyle news. Or check out our videos, the other videos with the funny post and some of the videos I make of beauty. And we're glad for your support, and leave your comments below, good or bad. So with that, me and William are going to sign off, and we are the Truth in News.